Thanks for joining us here at RSA 2025. Bright Security has just announced Bright Star, changing the face of AppSec forever. I'm here asking some questions to the Bright team. Let's go.
Hell yeah.
Let's do it.
Bar, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about Bright, your journey, how you got here,
so
where
you
you are
want to
now.
know our origin story?
I do.
Sure. So Bright started as an AI-guided fuzzer before AI was cool. Then we moved away to be a Dust company, basically doing dynamic application security company, but one of the best out there. We've developed a very, very, very deep tech and a very comprehensive technology around business logic tests and a lot of capabilities for enterprise customers. And now we came up with something new.
Tell me a little bit about that.
All right. So this new thing called STAR stands for security testing and auto-remediation is, as you said before, right? It's going to revolutionize application security globally. We're looking at a paradigm shift between Dust and SAST.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Gadi, I'd love to hear from you. Same question.
Please say the question.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
Gadi, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me about Bright, the journey, where it started and where you are now.
Well, I'll start with the fact that it's all his fault. All right. So he's the guy who started and came up with the original idea. This is Bar, our CTO and my co-founder. I'm Gadi, the CEO of Bright. I'll tell you a bit about the story and how we actually got here and the exciting news regarding STAR that we announced in this conference. So the company started in 2018 and our initial focus was an AI-driven fuzzer, way before AI was cool. We made a pivot in 2020 in order to focus on dev-centric enterprise DAST. We took the notion of dynamic application security testing and put it in the hands of developers much, much earlier than what any other solution in the market can do. We focused on enterprise customers, so we serve the largest banks, the largest financial institutions, some of the world's leading organizations, and we're very proud of the scale and scope that we have deployed with them. But over the past 12 months, we realized that really the way people are developing software is changing massively, and none of the AppSec solutions in the industry can actually meet that change. It started with the advent of AI-generated code, and we integrated with tools like Copilot and others that do AI code generation because that AI-generated code is very susceptible to vulnerabilities, and the developers don't actually know what's in that code, so they can't test it for security vulnerabilities. What that means is that we need to automate that process for the developers. We started on that journey, as I said, a year ago, and in the last 6 months, we really realized that we shouldn't just test for these vulnerabilities, we should also auto-remediate the vulnerabilities. That's technology that didn't exist up to 6 months ago. Now it exists, and we have it in our solution to be able to provide a full security testing and remediation solution that enables you to validate that any fix that we put in place actually worked, and that's a very unique differentiator for us as a dynamic company.
Awesome, sounds great. Can't wait to see it in action. So, Bar, I hear that you're launching this new solution at RSA this year. Tell me more about STAR.
All right. So STAR stands for security testing and auto-remediation. And as the name implies, it both tests for security and then remediate those issues that we find. I would say that one of the biggest strengths in STAR is its ability to not just auto-remediate and fix the problems that it finds, but also to validate those fixes. We hear a lot from other companies and other vendors, things like we can generate fixes with AI, or our developers are using Copilot or Anthropic or anything else to generate those auto-remediation or those fixes. The problem is that like you wouldn't trust AI to fully write your code, right? You wouldn't trust it to just fix it without validation. And that's where STAR comes into the picture with its very unique capability to both find issues, remediate them, and then validate those issues.
Nice. Can you tell me a little bit more about where the validation comes from and why perhaps Bright developing this on top of the DAST was so important?
Yeah, a good question. So our capability to actually do those validation comes from us being a dynamic application security testing company. We developed our DAST engine, which actually do those tests and do those validations using the technology that we've built. So it's not just AI magic or buzzwords. There's very deep tech involved here, and something that we've been working on for multiple years and has been battle tested throughout the industry with large enterprise customers.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Gadi, I hear that you're launching this great new application here at RSA. Can you tell me a little bit more about STAR?
Absolutely, happy to. So STAR stands for Security Testing and Auto Remediation. Right? The idea is to take the notion of security testing and expand it to now remediate the vulnerabilities as well. Right? The process has 4 key steps to it. The first one is auto-generating the security unit tests that will be run by the developers. Why do we need to generate that for the developers? Because of a couple of reasons. One, developers are not security experts, right? We want them to be. We've been working with developers for the last 5 years and deploying our solution to tens of thousands of developers, but they're not security expert, right? That's not their number one job. So if we can help them, that is very, very important, and we want to do that. The other aspect is that we're now looking at primary code, but that primary code can be developer generated or it can be AI generated. And if it is AI generated, the developers don't even know what's in it. So they can't generate the unit tests. So first step is us generating the unit tests for them. The next one is actually running the scans themselves and finding the vulnerabilities, which is kind of important. If you want to fix the vulnerabilities, you need to be able to find them without false positives, of course, because we take that dynamic approach. Even though now with STAR, we're able to find the same vulnerabilities that a static solution would find as well. So we're expanding the solution to go at static and dynamic and provide a holistic or comprehensive solution on the AppSec side for our customers. The next step is where it gets exciting, which is the auto remediation. We go back to that same AI code generation solution, which the customer has chosen. We will integrate into their environment. We won't force them to use our AI tools because we understand the complexities of doing that. And auto remediate, we will do an iterative approach where we will guide the AI code generator to to fix the vulnerabilities, right? And then we will run the validation. Because we're a dynamic solution, we're not guessing. Many of the static providers that provide an AI tool to fix vulnerabilities are guessing. They're trying. We're not trying. Right? We succeed. We know that we can validate that that fix actually worked, and then we give the pull request to the developer. So that's STAR. It automates that entire process to make sure that we're eliminating false positives. And in the handful of customers that have already deployed, we're seeing north of 80% successful proven remediation rates, which is awesome.
That is awesome. Wow, it truly sounds like a game changer. Bar, I'd love to hear how you think AppSec is going to change in the next few years.
I think that a lot of the current paradigms in application security are going to go away. Mainly the very legacy approach that, which is now legacy, I guess, that DevSecOps introduced, in the sense that developers need to take the burden of security, but that just didn't prove itself to be right. Or more likely, it's not that it's not right, it's just not applicable. Developers have so much to do, and they can't take the mantle of security and do that on their own. And they can't be guided to do that or forced to do that because that's just not their job. And I think that one of the biggest changes that are going to become is the understanding that we need to do that for them. We need to do the security for the developers, and we need to do the security for the AppSec. More automation and better approaches to actually do the work instead of giving it to someone else.
Great. So what I'm hearing from you is that essentially today developers might be a little bit resentful of their AppSec teams, that they have a heavy burden from the tool chains that most of the AppSec teams deploy, and that in the future you think that security is essentially, or AppSec is going to take back that responsibility from developers and deploy tools perhaps like STAR in order to fix that issue.
Exactly.
Sounds awesome. Gadi, I'd love to hear from you what you think the future of AppSec looks like. Talk to me about the next 2 to 4 years?
4 years is a tall order, I think, but 2 years I can definitely, maybe 3, I can definitely look at it. I think we've had this paradigm for the last 15, 20 years that when you're deploying an AppSec solution or an AppSec program, you need to have static analysis, you need to have dynamic analysis. In the last decade, you need to have software composition analysis. And then those are really the core aspects. We've had some other trends around, we need IAST as well, which was supposed to solve everything and became more complex than anything. I think that's what's going to change. The fundamental building blocks of AppSec are going to change because we changed the way in which we're developing software. And we have to adapt accordingly. So living with static analysis that has 50, 60, 80% false positives is unacceptable in today's day and age. Living with DAST that runs very late in the development lifecycle, and by the time you find vulnerabilities, they're already in production, and it takes you 60x longer to fix them is unacceptable in this day and age. Right? We have to change that, and that's exactly where these new solutions are going to come in that will enable you to, with high confidence, with very little false positives, test early in the development lifecycle, infuse context from later in the development lifecycle, so we're not losing context and we're not missing business logic vulnerabilities and LLM vulnerabilities and things like that today are being missed because you can't find those early in the development lifecycle, and then adding the auto remediation, which will automate that entire process with the validation. So the whole paradigm of SaaS, DAST, SDA is going to shift to a unified approach that will actually enable you to find everything early, fix it, and auto-remediate the vulnerabilities.
Awesome. Sounds like a job for Star. Gadi.
Yes.
The hot topic everywhere is AI. What are you guys doing about AI?
First of all, we're doing something about it. Let's start with that and not just talking about it, unlike a lot of the panels that I've been on. So let's start there. All right. We took the approach of addressing AI in a number of different ways. First of all, right, let's go to our legacy solutions, the DAST, the dev-centric enterprise DAST solution. Right, there are LLM vulnerabilities that need to be found by organizations, and we have added a bunch of LLM from the OWASP top 10 LLM list into our solution. So today you can find OWASP top 10, OWASP API top 10, OWASP LLM top 10, business logic vulnerabilities, everything within our solution, which is very, very important. That was the first step. The second step was looking at AI and AI-generated code and being able to automate the process of finding vulnerabilities in that AI-generated code. Because you take a developer, they're now 30, 40% more productive, which means the gap between development and AppSec has gotten even bigger. And you need to help them automate that process of finding vulnerabilities in AI-generated code. The last aspect is not only finding the vulnerabilities, but also automatically remediating them. And that's the last step of tying in AI in order to close the loop and be able to find the vulnerabilities and then auto-remediate them and validate that the auto-remediation worked well. So we're infusing AI in every aspect of our solution, but we're not just reliant on AI. We integrate that AI with the core capabilities that we've built over the last 7 or 8 years as a company in order to make the whole process more efficient.
I love that it's not just AI buzzwords, but actual security. Bar, I've heard that your slogan here at RSA this year is SaaS is dead. Not exactly a sad day for the industry. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we're saying that SaaS is dead. And the reason we're saying it is because no solution that has 60% false positives has any right to exist in a fast-paced development cycles. Going back and looking at every finding, going back and checking if everything needs more validation, more checks, and this back and forth between like development and AppSec is just, you can't go forward with proper development practices while still using, legacy tools that were meant for waterfall. And with the new arrival of Star that can cover both your static security in a matter of saying and your dynamic security, there's just no reason to keep using those, old security standards.
I guess we have it from the source. SaaS is truly dead. Gadi, more
Yes.
and more developers are using AI to generate code. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of security vulnerabilities that might introduce or what the security considerations are?
Yeah, I think when you look at AI generated code, one of the biggest problems that you have with that is that it relies on the training content that it relies on the training content that goes into it. The training content going into automatic code generation is all open source or majority open source. Open source code by definition does not have security as part of the key components taken into consideration. That means that we're training these auto AI generation tools to not have security as part of the key building blocks. And if they don't have security, that means that any code generated by them is by definition not secure. That's a problem. The other aspect is that now the developers don't actually know what's in that code, which means they can't really test it in an effective way. And they need to understand that it's very, very vulnerable. Actually, according to research, it's 4x more vulnerable than human-generated code.
Wow.
And secondly, they need tools that enable them to test it more effectively, and that's where STAR comes in.
Gadi, I'd love to hear more about the business impact and the customer impact that you've been seeing from customers that have tried STAR and are seeing this shift in the way that they work.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key things for us when we look to deploy our AppSec solutions is measuring customer impact. And what is the impact that they have in terms of not just finding, but also remediating vulnerabilities. Because if we can't improve the way that they remediate vulnerabilities, there's no sense in doing all this, right? It's not just a CYA practice, which we've seen in our industry for the last 20 years, but it's really having that impact. When we look at our customers, we divide them into two key parts or two key areas. There are some of our customers, the largest financial institutions out there, et cetera, that have a very mature program and really have everything nailed down and are doing very, very well. We've seen in those organizations that we've been able to reduce the time to find and fix vulnerabilities by 98%. We've taken the process down from a 12-week process to an intraday process by putting the solution in the hands of developers and automating everything. That is not an incremental improvement. At 98% improvement, that is very, very key impact. What we're seeing with the rest of the customers that don't have that experience and don't have that massive program in place, they need more help. And that's exactly why we're launching STAR. With STAR, we can enable the rest to get that same 98% impact in an automated way, in a very, very effective way. And that's where we want to strive with all customers. We want to give them the ability to fix vulnerabilities or remediate all vulnerabilities within that same day and not wait 12 weeks for stuff to be in production.
Thanks so much. Great. Thanks so much for joining us here at RSA 2025, the Bright team. Bye, everyone.
Very excited to be here. Thank you.